Okay, cool. I'm just gonna clear this really quickly. Okay. Before we begin, have you ever heard of the term data structures?
Data structures?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Okay, so data structures are basically a way to organize data. Remember when we talked about objects?
Mm-hmm.
Let Bernard, right, equal this. This is this object here, right? It has a collection of data, like age, food, username, these are data, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're organized in a certain way. They're organized in this like curly bracket, and then you have a set of key and value pairs, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is an object, then it is a type of a data structure. Um, so this is stored in memory in some fashion. We don't have to talk about how, but it is stored in memory in our computer. And that's what we mean by data structure. It's like how do we store data in our memory? And how do we structure it so that it's easy to access and manipulate?
Okay.
Mhm. So one of the most common type of data structure, other than an object, is what's called an array. So an array is basically like a list of things. So imagine, um, you know, you have a list of all your favorite foods, right?
Mm-hmm.
You would store that and with like the square bracket. Let me just create a variable really quickly, right? Let my favorite foods, right? I'm gonna create a variable called my favorite foods, right? And it's gonna be an array of something, right? So an array is basically indicated with the square bracket. It's opening and closing square bracket. It's sort of an indication that you're about to create an array.
Okay. So array
So
are square brackets.
exactly. These square brackets indicate that there's about to be an array, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if there's nothing in it, it's what we call this. If I just created this as is right now, right? And my favorite food, right? We type it in, right? And we see this, right? This is what's called an empty array.
If something was in there in the prior script before you
Mhm.
called it, would it display whatever was in the script?
Exactly, exactly. So let me update it, right? My favorite food, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
equal to now let's actually put in my favorite food, pizza, right? Now it has an item in that array, right? It has a list of items.
Mm-hmm.
And so it can have multiple items, right? So if I wanted to add an item to it, right? My favorite food dot no, I'm trying to remember a pen. Yeah. Give me one sec. I'm trying to remember how to add to an array. Add to array JavaScript. Oh, push. Okay. Okay. So if we wanted to add an item, another item to this array, you would do this by basically, one specifying which array we want to add it to. So in this example, right, this my favorite food. It's an array, and we're gonna add it to that array. And to add it to that array, we have this method, right? Method meaning a set of things that we can do. And one of it is called push.
To
So,
add to
mhm,
the array. So like to
right,
add to the list.
exactly, to push it into that array. So just like add it in there, right?
Okay.
Okay, so let's say burger is my next favorite food, right? So now, right, my favorite food, right? Look at this. There's two items in this array now.
Wait, where did that two come from? The blue two.
This, don't worry about it. We'll go over this.
Yeah.
Um, but like focusing on this aspect, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pizza, comma, burger, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a way to indicate that you have multiple items, and you can see what items are in that array. And
Yeah.
they all are stored in this little, square bracket, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's another property of arrays, and that is what we call the location or the index of the array.
Okay.
So indexes are basically locations. So think about it this way. This pizza, right, is located in this array, correct?
Mm-hmm.
But it's located at a certain position. It's located in the first position.
Mm-hmm.
Burgers that is stored in the second position.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we call indexes, right? So
Index
this
what?
index,
An index.
this is stored at the first index. This is stored at the second index.
Okay.
hmm Now, there's this joke, right? In computer science. So if you wanted to start counting, right?
Mm-hmm.
How would you start counting?
You just start counting 1, 2, 3.
Right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? No,
Mhm.
not in computer science. No, computer science has to make it difficult. Instead, we start counting at 0. So we say 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
Yeah. Um,
So there would
so
be 0 index.
yeah. 0 index just means the first item.
So pizza would be 0 index and
Correct.
would be first index.
Exactly. 100%.
Okay.
It's kind of messy because it's like so frustrating because sometimes I'm like looking at the third item and I'm like, this is index 3. No, it's actually no, it's index 2. So it kind of like throws you off a little bit.
And that's only in an array.
Yes. Arrays they start with index 0.
Arrays start with
Wait,
index. What? I'm sorry.
index 0. Well, technically, so do strings. This is where it gets really frustrating. Strings also start at index 0.
Start.
Yeah.
Uh,
Let me create a different variable, right? Mm, I don't know. Name, right? He's Bernard, right?
mhm.
Okay. So let's say we look at this, right?
Mhm.
You can sort of think of it as like an array of characters. So things like B, E, R. I should have picked a smaller name. You can sort of think of it this way.
Mhm.
Bernard, right? This string here, you can sort of think of it as like an array of characters. And I misspelled my own name. Bernard. There we go. So you can think of it as like an array of characters too.
Mhm.
So if you wanted to access the first character, right, of my name, you would just look for the first index, right, which is just index 0.
Mhm.
Same thing here. You would do the same thing in a string. This is a little off topic, but I just wanted to I guess what I wanted to take away from this is that you can sort of think of strings as an array as well in some
Okay.
cases. Yeah.
And a string is part of a data type.
Yes, exactly. It is. It is a data type. And this is one of those data types where it's just it's stored in memory, sort of in a similar way as items in an array are. We can go over that later, but the point is, you can sort of like what you're learning about arrays in some places can also apply in strings.
Okay.
Mhm. But like you mentioned, right? So this is pizza, right? It's that index.
0.
hmm So in order to figure it out, let's say you don't even know what is index 0, right? But you want to know what the first item is, right? What you would do is, let's say you want to know what the first item of my favorite food is, right? What you would do is to get access to it, you have to index into that array.
Mhm.
To index into that array is all it is. It just have within the name of the array, right? And then square bracket, right? And inside that square bracket, you put the position that you want to look into. So in this case, you want to look at position 0 or index 0, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we put 0 in there, and then look, that tells us what is in that array at position 0 or index 0.
Mm.
Is that making sense?
Yeah.
Cool, cool. Just going back to name, right? This right here, just going back to the string really quickly. You wanted to see what the first character is of the name of the string. You can also do the exact same thing. Square bracket. Yeah.
Okay.
So another cool trick I wanted to go over is basically, let's say you want to know what the last item of the array is, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can take a guess in terms of how you think you do it.
You'd count the letters.
Sure, sure. So you can do that, right? So you count how many there are, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's 2 items in this array, and then you would be like, okay, the last item is going to be at position.
One.
Yeah, yeah. And how did you get that?
Because in front of those two, that two bracket is there.
Yeah, it tells you the size is 2, right?
Uh-huh.
So you know the last position is basically the length of it minus 1.
Mm.
So if there were 3 items, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I was to add another item here, right?
Mm-hmm.
What position would that be at?
Index 1.
If I were to add in another item here,
At the end, index
mhm,
2.
exactly. Yep, exactly.
But
So
um, what was the 2 above it? Where did that 2 come from?
this right here is basically when you push it, it tells you what the length of it is so far.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so at that position, at this point, there was only 1 item in the array.
Mm-hmm.
So when we push something else, it says, hey, your new length is 2.
Okay.
Mhm. Um, so basically, yeah, you're totally right. So to get the position, right? To get the last item, right? All you do is just look at the length of the list, right? And then look for the 1 minus 1.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, the length of this is 2, right? And then we just subtract that by 1, and then we get 1. And then that position 1 is the last item.
Okay.
Let me push another item into it. Um, tacos. Okay. Now the new length is 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because, oops,
So you could just constantly add as many items as you want using
yep,
dot.
yep,
Oh,
yep, you can. Dot push, and there's another trick too that I will go over. But another thing, another important property of dot push though, is that it adds it at the end of the list.
okay.
Hmm.
Not
So
before.
yeah, exactly. Not like in the
That's
beginning or anything.
to add it before?
How to add it in like a certain position?
Yeah.
That's a great question. Let's Google that. How to add element to certain position in array JavaScript. Uh, Splice. Oof, it's quite a bit of work. Okay, I think it's just this right here. Let me look at this example. And want to add Lenny at position 2. 0, 1, 2. What is this 0 doing? Okay, I guess it's just dot splice and then the position, comma, 0, comma, whatever the item is. I wouldn't really worry about it that much. These are the kind of things that you can easily Google and like you don't have to memorize it. Yeah, it was one of those things where even like completely forgot like dot push too. So good thing that Google had the answers. Cool. The dot push basically pushes it to the end, right? That's an important property to keep in mind. Especially if you like care about, what position is that. Um, but in this case, we're just gonna work off of this. So we added tacos, right, to the array. So when we added tacos, right, it ends up at the end of the position. So if I were to ask you what index is tacos at, what would you say?
0, 1, 2, 2.
Mhm. Two, exactly. And how did you get that?
Um, I counted.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. An easier way is just looking at the length of it, length of the array, -1.
Okay.
So if the length of this array is 3, then you know the last item is at index 2, because 3 minus 1 is 2. Another cool trick though, is that you can also, how we were thinking about counting from front to so basically like we're sort of counting from like left to right, right?
Yeah.
You can also think of it from right to left, meaning, um, so this is at index 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is also at index -1. Oh, really? No? You really serious? Okay, I guess not. I'm thinking so much about Python. Let me array at index -1. Oh, it's JavaScript. Non-negative integers. All right, cool. Good to know. I guess not. Ignore that I said that. Um, that applied with Python, but not here. Okay. Well, in this case, just ignore this part. But basically, yes. In order to figure out what the last item is, we can sort of take the length of this array and then -1,
Mm-hmm.
right? So how do you get the length of the list? To do that, there's another property that we can leverage. Sort of like how dot push is a method that we can use, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's another method that we can use, which is called dot length.
And Dotling tells you the amount of elements in the script
Exactly, in the array.
in the array. Okay.
You can also apply for strings too. So you remember name, right? Bernard. If you wanted to see the length of it, all you have to do is just dot length.
Okay, and it just reads the number of, and it starts with 0 to the system or no?
It does. So basically name, right? At index 0 is B.
But
Because
okay, so back to the food
mhm,
example. There's
mhm,
3.
mhm.
So 0 is still counted in that 3.
Absolutely, yeah. But the thing is, this is the length of it, meaning how many items are in this array.
Ah, okay.
Mhm. So element at index 1, right? It's burger. Element at index 2 is taco. So what happens if I try to do element at my favorite food at index 3? What happens?
Nothing. Or error.
Yeah, it's pretty much not error, but undefined. It says, hey, I don't know what is in index 3.
Okay.
Yeah. That is because you don't want to exceed go past the array. So
Mm-hmm.
basically this array only has 3 items.
Mm-hmm.
So it only has up to index 2. So if you try to access index 3, it won't understand it.
Okay.
So this is what you see right here. You see 0, 1, 2. This is sort of like the index, and then this is the value, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's how arrays work. So one of the cool tricks that you can use is if you wanted to, like, let's say, find out the item at the end of the array,
Mm-hmm.
but let's say you don't exactly know how many items in, like right now in this example, we know there's 3 items, right?
Mm-hmm.
But imagine I gave you an array that you don't even know what's in it. but you want to know what the last item is.
Mm-hmm.
So how can you leverage, right, this thing here to figure out the last item?
You would have to call the length, the
Yeah.
third. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but no, you're going in the right direction. Remember how it's like, oh, if you want to figure out the last item, just take the length and then subtract one, right?
Uh-huh.
So you can do the exact same thing here. So if you took this length minus one, right? So maybe my favorite food dot length, right? Subtract that by one, you get the last item.
Oh,
Hmm.
but you have to include the my fave foods in there.
Right, and this gives you the length of the array.
Okay.
Hmm. So if the length of the array is 3, then you know the last item is at index 2.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how we can leverage the length of the array to basically figure out what to index.
Okay.
And this will make more sense when you start to see the for loop. So but before we get into the for loop, I just want to show you something else about it that's also important about arrays. So we looked at that push, right?
Yeah. To add on
Um,
the list.
So if that adds on to the list, right? What other things that we want to do? The opposite of adding.
Subtract.
Yeah, taking out. Yeah, exactly. Taking it out, right? To take
Mhm.
out an item from, the array. So to do that, instead of doing that push, we do the dot pop.
Dot pop.
hmm And then take that out. So now, look at what that.
So you put my fave foods dot pop.
hmm
Did you list tacos?
Nope. I just told them to pop, right? What do you think gonna happen, right? At the end, when you did
Oh,
that pop,
take out. It's gonna take away the N.
exactly, exactly. The last item that was added, I'm be like, all right, you're gone. So if I did dot pop again, what do you think gonna look like?
Just pizza on its own.
Yeah, burger gets popped out.
Okay, so dot push adds on to the end of the list, and dot pop takes out from the end of the list.
There you go. Yep, exactly.
My fave foods. Okay.
That makes sense.
Yes.
Cool. All right. That's all there is to it. When it comes to arrays. It gets a little more trickier when we go into for loop because for loop and arrays are sort of like, sort of like a combination.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets trickier when we talk about how to index into the array using a for loop.
Okay.
It gets tricky, but I want you to keep this in mind before we do that.
Keep what in mind?
The thing that I'm highlighting.
Oh,
hmm
to take away from the end.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So how we're leveraging the length to be able to index into it. Cool.
Okay.
I'm gonna clear this. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Okay. So now let's talk about for loop, right? So before we go into that,
For loops.
for loops. It's a for loop, right?
Okay.
Or a lot of people put them in one word. For loop, right? Basically, the idea behind a for loop is it's a loop. Um, the reason why we add a for in it is because there's a key term, there's a key word incorporated into it. That's for, FOR, and you can sort of think about it like remember how we have bar, right? let another kind of thing. Those are keywords, right? They're already taken. Same thing with for. So let's try to create a variable called for, right? And then what do you think is gonna happen?
Undefined or error.
Yeah, it's like this name for has already been taken.
Okay.
So with this in mind, I first want to go over what a loop is, right? A loop and essentially is a set of repeated operation.
A set of repeated operations.
Exactly.
What kind
So
of operations?
that's where you get to define it. So it is up to you what sort of things are being repeated, what operations are being repeated, right? You also get to define how many times they're going to be repeated. But the idea is that imagine if I were to tell you to count every number, no, to sum up, right, a number from 1 to 100, right? So, okay, you start from 1, okay, 1 plus 2 is 3, 3 plus 3 is 6, 6 plus 4 is 10. You do this operation, right? And if you had a human being do that, it's just a very slow process because they have to actually like add it up and it gets more complicated, the bigger the number gets, right?
Yeah.
But a computer is much faster. It can do these set of operations really, really fast. And it can it can do repeated cycles really, really efficiently. That's the power of computers, is that they don't get tired and they can do same task over and over again really, really fast. So this is where we leverage loops. Because imagine you're counting, right? You're adding up those numbers, right? It's a loop. It's the same cycle. We should just add the previous numbers together and then add it with the next number.
Okay.
That's a loop, right? You're just continuously doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
So um, what a loop is just basically a set of operation that happens, right? Um, and how many times it happens is up to you. And also what the operation is also up to you.
Okay.
So let me go over a really quick example, right? Well, before we do that, I think we should really discuss the syntax of it. So the syntax is basically we start with the term for, right? The key term for, and then this is where we have a parentheses, right? Inside the parentheses, there's three main areas or three main requirements, so to say. The first requirement is the variable. We need a variable that basically tells us where in the stage of operation we are currently in.
Okay.
Okay. So we can create a variable, and typically I like to create a variable called let, right? I start with a let. And then we can say counter, right? We can create a variable called counter, and then let's initialize it to 0. Actually, matter of fact, let me, instead of calling it counter, let's call it number. So what does this do?
Let number equals 0. It identifies that number is 0.
Yep, exactly. And it's all stored into the variable called number, right? Okay, cool. That's okay. There's a 10-minute warning, just a heads up. But basically we've initialized a variable called number and we established it as equal to 0, right? And then that's the first requirement. It's basically what is the variable, right? The first requirement is a variable. That basically tells us how many times we repeated this operation.
So those three, the let number and equal 0 is one variable.
Yeah, this is how we create a variable in in regular,
Yeah.
yeah.
But for the for loop, you're indicating the syntax for prior, and then you're putting in those three main requirements inside the brackets.
Yep, exactly. But this is the first requirement. This is only requirement number 1. There's
Okay.
2 more requirements, yes. So the first requirement is we initialize a variable, right? And it tells us where to start, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just say we want to, the example that we went through where we like add number from 1 to 100.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do that. Let's make a computer do that, right?
Okay.
So to do that, you know what I'm gonna do? Instead, I'm gonna start number at 1.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're gonna continuously do this. Also, at the end of it, we do a semicolon. This is the only place semicolons is required in for loop.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So we established number, we've initialized it to 1, right? And we want it to continuously go on until we reach 100, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so to do that, we sort of have a condition inside the next requirement is a condition in terms of when are we gonna stop.
And the condition is setting up rules for your script, giving
Basically, yeah,
certain
a loop.
instructions for certain criteria to be met.
Exactly. So you are the first requirement is initializing a variable that tells the loop where to start, right?
Okay.
The next requirement is telling the loop when to end.
The second requirement is to tell the loop when to end.
And it's a condition. It has to be a condition,
Okay.
and it
Condition.
tell exactly once that condition is met is when that's it. If the condition is true, stop the operation.
Okay.
hmm So in this example, I wanted to stop when it reaches a hundredth number, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in this case, we know that it reached a hundredth number if the number is greater than 100.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool. So we've initialized the number at 1, and we told it, hey, if number is greater than 100, stop the operation, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if that condition is not met, what do we want it to do? We want it to increment number by 1. This is basically telling, this is the third condition. Um, I like to do number plus plus. But basically, this is the third requirement
Mm-hmm.
where we tell the JavaScript, right? Um, what to do with this variable at each set of operation, right? After the set of operation is done, what should it do with number?
Okay.
And this plus plus basically just says, hey, take the current number and then update it by 1.
Okay, so the first requirement is a variable. The
hmm
second requirement is a condition to tell the loop when to end.
hmm
What is the third requirement?
Is telling the loop what to do with the variable
Okay,
at
telling
each cycle,
what cycle? I'm sorry.
at each loop.
Okay,
hmm
tell the loop what to do.
hmm So in this example, right?
Mhm.
We start with a variable called number, and it's initialized to a value of 1. And the condition is it has to be actually less than 100. We want the condition to be true. It's when the condition is false that it stops. Kind of messed up my words earlier. It's when the condition is false. That's when it stops.
So when the condition is false, this loop stops.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's true, it'll keep counting to 100.
Yes, exactly. It will continuously increment by 1. This three here tells it what to do. So let's go through an example, right? It starts at 1, right? And then it says, hey, after this, right, it goes to here and it says, hey, it's number less than 100.
Mm-hmm.
1 is less than 100. Okay, cool. Then I'll go to the third thing. What is it? It's gonna increment number by 1. But
Mm-hmm.
first, I would actually go into the body. So the body of the loop is basically inside here.
Mm-hmm.
It is squiggly bracket. So it goes through here, and it's like it's like checking the condition. And if the condition is met, it goes into the body.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next iteration or the next cycle, it goes through here.
Wait,
Mm-hmm.
can
So
can you repeat
mhm.
that again?
Absolutely, absolutely. So it starts here, right? At number equal 1.
Mm-hmm.
Check the condition. If it's met, it goes into the body, right?
Okay.
Whatever we wanted to do here, like I'm just gonna write it quick. Now do stuff here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or do some things here, right? And then once it's done, it goes back to the top, right? But it goes here first. And it says, hey, number is currently at 1. So number plus plus means we're gonna increment our value by 1.
Mm-hmm.
So now one number changes from 1 to 2.
Mm-hmm.
After that, it goes here and it says, hey, is this condition true?
Mm-hmm.
So number is 2, right? 2
Yeah.
is less than 100.
So it keeps repeating itself.
Exactly. It keeps repeating itself, right? Okay, do stuff here. The next thing we'll do, number plus plus. Now it's 3. 3 less than 100? Yeah. Okay, go back here. And so on and so on and so on until we get to a number that is actually greater than 100.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. So
Yeah.
at first it reads it all,
Mm-hmm.
and then it'll,
Yeah. First it read it all, and the next thing to do is just listen to these two.
but it will start at the end and then the middle.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. And middle, and middle, and middle.
Okay. That
Mm-hmm.
makes sense.
Yeah, this is just the initialization that happened. This is the condition that tells it when to stop. And then this is what happens if the condition is not met.
Okay.
So it will continuously do this, right? But once the condition is met, it stops, and then that's it. We exit out of the for loop.
Okay.
So its body here is no longer red.
Got it.
Mhm. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool. I'm just gonna do a console log really quickly inside of it, and I want you to see this, right? If I
Mhm.
console log number, what do you think gonna happen?
If you console log number,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's gonna count all the way to 100.
Mm-hmm. And so it's gonna console log it, right? Gonna print it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm gonna do that, right? Press enter. Look at that. I don't know why I did 100. I should have done a smaller number, but yeah. Um, it goes from, it prints out all the numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way to 99.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I stopped at 99 is because when it's 100, 100 is not less than 100.
Yeah.
They equal to each other, so it stops. That condition, once it hits 100, it's like, okay, no, this is no longer true, so exit.
Okay.
Cool. We're almost out of time. We can jump right back in. I just want to give you a heads up. Do you need the link to the Zoom link?
Yes, please.
Okay, cool, cool. I'll put it in the chat. Okay, in a bit.
Thank you.